Hey, everybody. Ashleigh, thanks for joining us. We are very excited to have you on tonight.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Well, Ashleigh, you're from Paleo Magazine, but I just wanted to get a little bit about your background. I read a little bit. You're a CrossFit strongman. You are a nationally qualified figure competitor. But what else should people know about you?
Yeah, so I host a podcast as well, so we're all in good company here. I host a Paleo Magazine radio. I'm pretty new to it, actually. I've been doing it only for about 4 or 5 months now, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm really learning a lot. I've written for Paleo Magazine for about 5 years now. My background is basically communications and writing, but I'm kind of just getting to the point now where I'm able to sort of mix my two passions, which are communications, writing, and then sort of the fitness and health and wellness side, which was always more of a hobby and something that I like to do. And I've always I like to call myself, no one else calls me this, but I like to call myself a Renaissance woman when it comes to fitness, because I like to try new things. Like it's hard for me to kind of stick to one thing. I've done the CrossFit thing, and I was a swimmer, and I did some powerlifting, and then I was into bodybuilding for a while. I'm still kind of doing that. I'm doing some other things, but I really like to experiment and learn all I can, and learn from people that are smarter than me and try some things. And I'm hoping, ideally I'd love to be in that sort of space with, biohacking and all that stuff is very hot right now. You've got the Tim Ferriss and Dave Asprey and Ben Greenfield kind of people who are able to experiment and learn and do all these kind of cool things and teach other people. And you don't really see a lot of women maybe in that space. So maybe it's time for a woman to be doing that kind of stuff too. So that's what I'm working on, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
And Brazilian Ju-Jitsu. That's
yeah.
Too.
So that's another one. Yeah. I really like to learn new things, and I like to be strong, and I like to have kind of different skills. And really, there are very few skills that are less kind of useful and badass. And I think especially for women than Jiu-Jitsu. It's valuable. You can kick.
Well, I have 2 girls that are 5 years old, and my goal is to get them into Jiu-Jitsu, and my wife too. I would love to see it because, not necessarily, I guess just because it's a great thing to kind of learn, but also self-defense, because I don't think there's anything better for a woman to learn than Jiu-Jitsu, because it's such, it deals when somebody grabs you and people that are up close and stuff like that. So I think the sooner they learn something like that, the better they're going to be through life.
And the best thing about Jiu-Jitsu is it's meant for people who are not as strong. So it's not about brute strength and force. It's about intelligence and leverage and that kind of stuff. So it's the perfect skill for self-defense, and for women, I think especially. It's awesome. And it makes you feel like a badass when you can choke people out.
I know. I want to do that so bad.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, you guys wouldn't survive the lawsuits. Yeah, it's interesting. Because I never took martial arts except for in the academies and stuff that we did. Was it Cobb McGraw and all that kind of stuff? We learned some of that, and a former Delta guy was our defensive tactics instructor, and it was interesting. But everyone always asked me, because they go, "Well, you never learned any," or because I don't know, I'm kind of ornery at times, and I go, "I just grew up." I just grew up redneck. They go, "Where'd you learn all your stuff mainly?" I learned how to fight redneck.
Yeah.
We just fought,
That's a skill.
Each other.
No holds barred.
There were no rules. It was just, to a point. You got someone on the ground, you start beating the crap out of them. It's someone grabs you, goes, "Okay, it's over.
Yeah.
But
there's a couple people in the UFC that fight like that too.
Well, yeah, there's some good rednecks in there.
Yeah.
And they're tough.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm anywhere near that anymore, man. Getting hit hurts.
Yeah. It is. And I think Jiu-Jitsu maybe more so than even other martial arts. I could be wrong. I sometimes feel like it's a young person's game a little bit. I only got into it when I was maybe 29. It was, a few years ago. And I immediately wish that I had started earlier, because it's extremely demanding, and it's really hard on you. It's hard on you ache, and you're covered in bruises. And it's a painful thing. So it is something that I would recommend if you're into it, get into it. Don't wait. Do it while you're young and supple.
See, I've already waited too long. I want to do this, and I'm 46, so you're telling me I'm too late? Come on.
Better late than never. But I'm saying, if you've got some kids who, if you're looking to build somebody's confidence and strength and body awareness and all that stuff, I mean, do it now. Actually, the place that I go to has a kids class right before my class, and I love going to watch it. It's boys and girls because, you know, up to a certain point, it's like, it's all the same anyway. And it's just seeing how much fun it is for the kids and how much confidence they get. It's very, very cool.
Awesome.
They let them touch each other now? I didn't think kids were allowed to do any physical touching or aggression, or I thought they had to wear, you know.
There's still a couple of places. There's still a couple places that let you. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, Chambers, I've got it. I'll give you your training class right now. You say, look, your shoe's untied, and then you punch them. That's your move.
Well, that's what we learned how to do.
That's what old people do. We're just slyer.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know? But my dad always told me whenever when he was a little bit older than me, and he worked in manufacturing, he was out at dinner one night, and some dude just was messing with him and called him an old man, and he stood up and punched him right in the face before he could say anything else. So, you know, he said the trick to fighting is just as soon as somebody opens their mouth, punch them. You know?
Yeah.
Don't let it escalate. Just take them out right from the beginning. So that's kind of my fatherly lesson that I'll give my kids. Just hit them.
Well, we give you a story on that, and because we're talking about age, and I agree, man. There's certain things I just can't do anymore. But me and some buddies were out at a bar one night, and it was one of our friends. He's, I want to say he's in his 60s. He may be in his 70s now. Retired, good guy. We'd go out, and me and my buddy went to the bar. Well, unknowns to us, we're up at the bar screwing around, waiting for our drinks. Well, my other buddy, and my older friend, they're getting in a fight outside, and it's through the glass, so we can't tell what's going on. And finally, we turn around, we look, and the old guy's got this 20-something-year-old guy by the throat, just holding him, and the guy's eyes are starting to roll back in his head. And we get out there, we go, what the hell happened? You know, we go up, get a drink, and this guy, he's taken martial arts, he's boxed. I mean, he did. The kid was, he just grabbed him while he was talking and started choking him out with one hand. Literally cut off his wind. And I was like, that's right. Don't mess with the old guys, man.
Yeah, it's pretty badass.
Yeah, we were like, God dang, we'll just make sure. And he starts any problems, you know, Bill, the old guy, just let him handle it. Mm-hmm. It was pretty funny to see the expression on that kid's face, and he walked away just like embarrassed. And they all kind of just shuttled out, and we're like, all right.
Age and wisdom.
And if you go look videos up, there's some old man fights that are epic. I did this a while ago. And
you don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Well,
yeah, I know what I'll be doing tonight.
Yeah.
Well, and I kid you not, they're epic. And it's always some 40, 50-year-old guy punching out a 20-year-old. And it's epic to watch because the old guys are just waiting. Every one of them you watch, they're just waiting. And as soon as they get their opportunity, man, it's just out.
It's
done.
The wisdom and the patience, right, that comes from age. And I mean, you're even, again, going back to the UFC, because that's probably my favorite sport and the thing that I watch and follow the most. But the athletes are getting older and older, right? Like there's 40-year-olds that are still fighting, and they're not, you know, and that's one of the possibly the most demanding sports. You've got, you know, football players now, quarterbacks who are old, and, you know, people with the technology that we have and the ability to, the supplements and the recovery stuff that we have now. I mean, people are able to do stuff a lot longer. So I guess maybe steroids. I retract my statement. Well, that too, and steroids, yeah. All of those things is helping people. So, I mean, I guess we shouldn't be complaining about being old yet. Not yet.
Not yet, because it's the age is changing, and a lot of experience too. I mean, the physical gifts are one thing, but if you can combine, you know, the physical gifts with the experience, that's like the lethal combination right there. But yeah, UFC has such a short lifespan. I mean, because you just get the crap beat out of you no matter what. Yeah. Even if you win, unless you're getting in right away, it's going to be painful. And the training.
Yep.
I mean, you're not going to get.
Hardest part.
Yeah, you're not going to come out unscathed. I mean, their ears don't look like cauliflower for no reason.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how good you are, too. That's the thing about that sport. Even if somebody's a heavy favorite in a fight, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
did you guys? I mean, did you follow it at all? Last night's fight, Jose Aldo is one of the best pound for pound fighters in the history of the sport, and I mean, he got his ass handed to him last night. And it's very sad. But and then we've got my favorite, the Canadian GSP. I don't know if you guys follow this at all. I might just be talking.
Well, GSP is coming back.
Yeah.
I can't handle this. He was one of the few guys that left while he was on top. He was respected. He still had his brain. He had a lot of money. He left while he was a champion. And I get that people who are high functioning and they get bored and they want to come back and they want the excitement, but I've seen these guys come back. Sometimes they do okay for a fight or two, but it's like you retired for a reason. And why come back and risk it all? You're old at this point. I just don't get it. It makes me sad. I love GSP. He's my favorite fighter. I just would have liked for him to stay retired and have a gym and just have his money and be happy and be healthy. And
his whole thing when he left, he said that he was having brain problems. He was having memory problems. So he was right there talking about how he had concussive, a situation. So he was just shocking when he said he was going to come back. So where does that stand right now? Because I know he just recently had an injury and they were pushing things back.
Yeah, he had some kind of eye injury and now it's being pushed. And the last I heard, Dana White was saying that he was not going to fight Bisping anymore, which was another matchup that I did not think was very smart because he's so much bigger. And I thought, why would you come back after being out for years and go up a weight class, like stay in welterweight? It just seemed ridiculous to me. But he's saying that now if he comes back, he'll be fighting in welterweight, I think. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll wait a couple more months and maybe he'll come to his senses. I mean, he's got enough money, so.
Yeah, if you look, he has to look at BJ Penn. I mean, him and BJ Penn have followed the same trajectory their whole careers. BJ comes back after a layoff and he looked terrible. And
he was the perfect example.
He came back.
Perfect example.
Horrible.
He had this incredible legacy. He's an incredible athlete. He's amazing. And he could have stopped and just left it there and he didn't. And it was sad for all of his fans to watch.
The only person who's ever come back older and been just as good or better is George Foreman. To be honest with you, when you talk about fighting, not only that, I mean, Michael Jordan, I mean, Jesus Christ, how many, and it was never good.
Yeah.
And I think there's a point of, it's not only the age, but it's the rustiness. I mean, you've been non-competitive for so long that to get back to where you'd want to go, you'd have to train for probably a year or two at least, and competitive training, hardcore. Yeah. And these guys try and jump back in and the body's not there, the mind's not there, and you're risking so much. But you know what? I'll be honest with you, as I get older, the competitive juices still flow with me, but I'm smart enough to know the body ain't there. It's just, it's not there. I can't even go play a pickup basketball game. I mean, it would be a disaster, and I get hurt. It's just one of those things. It's sad to say. It is sad, but that's part of getting old.
I think that's one of the tough things about athletes, though, in particular, is that, and especially fighters, is part of what comes with being a great athlete, I think in most cases, is this great ego too. And you kind of have to have it to be a fighter, to go out and take those risks in front of millions and millions of people. You kind of have to think that you are the best and that you're going to be okay. And then you have this team of people around you that are also hyping you up and telling you that you're the best and you're going to win and you're better than everybody else. So even if you are getting older and even if you are getting slower, you still kind of have that mentality, and it's hard to see things objectively.
Well, and you see other people getting that fame that you used to have, and it's a natural competitive instinct. Yeah. It's hardwired in us. It's a survival mechanism, to be honest with you. And not only that, but it's a sexual reproduction part of the human element. So it's a dominant factor, and you see someone else doing something you used to do and it's being successful. And I hate to say it, but as humans, we get envious, we get jealous. And I know the first thought that's going through in those guys' head is, screw those guys. I'm going to beat the shit out of them. I'm going to show everyone. And I know, because it's gone through my head. And I do it because I'm competitive. And I do it sometimes stupidly and do it in forums I shouldn't do it in. And I've gotten better. Yeah. But it's just one of those drives, you can't turn it. You can't turn it off until someone just pummels you.
Yeah.
And
one of the funny.
Yeah.
Well, one of the funny stories here recently is, I'm from Kentucky, and a few years ago, the Charlotte Charlotte Hornets. Now it's the Charlotte, whatever it is, the basketball team. Good God, why am I not? Can't think of that right now. But anyway, they drafted a UK player, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, and when he came in for his rookie training, Michael Jordan, of course, owns Charlotte. And he came out wearing gym shorts and challenged him to a one-on-one game. And MKG is this young, he was one and done. So he's this young 20-year-old guy, has all this fire. And they asked him who won, and he just kind of smiled and he said, it wasn't me. So Jordan, can still put those old man moves on sometimes too. So, even for short bursts, I mean, you see that with in the NFL when Brett Favre came back. I mean, Favre held on and held on and held on. And but like you said, it's the consistency. And I'm sure Jordan worked out every day still,
Yep.
I mean, when he left basketball that first time to play baseball, he was still competitive. So when he came back those 3 years afterwards, he won a title each year. So it's about consistency. And that's what I'm trying to find as a 46-year-old guy.
He was younger though. I mean,
well, when he came back, I think he was 33 or 4.
Now it's 33, 34 is big difference between 45 and 50.
That's true. That's true.
You could still play. I could still play at 33, 34. I cannot play at 46, 47. I cannot.
But at that level, but I'm talking about championship level.
That's what I mean. It's Well, I think if you can keep yourself healthy, I think that's where the two combine. I don't know what you guys think, but I think around between 30 to 35 is when the experience and the physicality comes into its own. It's like one of those where they're kind of meshing together, where physically you can still do it, but the mental part and the sharpness and the experience are at their peak. I mean, and that's the guys who take care of themselves and can get through and get to that age.
That makes me feel good. I've got a couple years. That's good.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
It's not too late for you to jump into the UFC, Ashleigh.
I talk shit all the time. I'm like, if I had started this when I was 16, I would be in there. And there's a part of me that really feels it. And then there's still a part, I have friends who are in their 30s that are training for amateur fights. And, the same with the bodybuilding. You don't have to get into this stuff thinking you're going to be the best at it. Sometimes you can do it because it's a skill and it makes you better and it's fun. And if you never compete, that's okay. If you compete locally, like you're getting something out of it, right? So who knows? You might see me on TV, on YouTube maybe or something at some point. We'll see. I don't know.
Well, that's a good part of it, and that's what people, I always talk about too, you'll never reach perfection, but there's nothing wrong with striving for it.
Absolutely.
And if you love something and you want to compete at it, there's always a league. I mean, there are old person leagues all over the place. I mean, you can play competitive sports in your 70s. I mean, I've seen leagues that go to that age. Yeah. So it's like, hey, if you have fun, do it. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. You know what? Getting hurt's a part of life. Yeah. And there's certain things I will not do just because I know are a bad idea. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I don't limit what I can do physically in my mind going, well, I could get hurt. Heck, I've hurt myself stepping off a curb wrong.
Exactly.
Not paying attention and, racking my knee or my ankle and going, and I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, you can't let that just creep in and stop you from doing anything. Yep. You could get hurt. How many freak accidents have you heard of over the years? Yeah. I mean, and professional athletes even, that one year, who was the baseball player that got rolled up in the friggin' rain tarp? I mean, of all the stupid accidents, he was trying to get off the field, if I remember right.
Yeah. And it was rain delay. And they rolled his ankle up in the tarp.
Rolled it right up in the tarp. Yeah.
Yep. And he said this was one of the star players too. The greatest sports injury ever was John Smoltz for the Atlanta Braves. Got hurt and had to be put on the disabled list because he tried to iron his shirt while it was on him.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
No. Gus Frerotte headbutting the foam, the separation between the stands and the fans. Remember, didn't he headbutt that, or was it the goalpost one?
It was the goalpost.
Was it the goalpost one?
When he was with the Redskins. I was living in D.C. when he did that.
Yeah.
That was
Notice all these ridiculous accidents are all men. Just FYI.
I have to go back and look in the archives. There's got to be one.
Well, good. Since you're a woman here, I do have a quick rant. And you can tell me what you think.
Oh, great. I can't wait. That was a good segue.
I'm just glad. Okay, I'm not here to piss women off, but I am so glad Mother's Day is over. if I see another damn Zales commercial or friggin' jewelry commercial, I'm literally going to jump out a window. From October to fucking May, end of May, it is non-stop jewelry commercials, and I cannot take it. I did not know that I'm supposed to give any woman I see randomly, apparently, jewelry and diamonds. Make sure it's expensive, just to make sure, because that's the only way, from what I can tell from TV, that any woman's ever going to like me for any apparent reason.
Yeah.
And it just aggravates me. It's one after another. And I feel like jumping up, going, you know where those diamonds are from? Watch the movie Blood Diamond. God damn it. There's little kids getting those diamonds. Yeah. They're all in the black market. It's a filthy industry. Don't buy diamonds. But I can't.
And it's all a ploy to make me feel guilty.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's what all advertising is, right? I mean, every year I think people get pissed every year, like it's a new thing when pumpkin spice stuff comes out in August and Christmas stuff goes up at Costco in, September. And people get pissed every year, but it's that way because people are going to spend money. So people are going to
Christmas is earlier and earlier every single year. And my other one, have you seen the male romper?
Yes.
If you're a guy,
I feel like a lot of this stuff.
Here's the thing. You can't tell me next year when school starts, every frat guy, and I can't say anything because I was a frat guy in college. Every frat guy's going to have a romper party.
Yeah, and wait till Halloween. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, rompers abound at Halloween for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be everywhere.
I think I saw it's the #1 trending search term or something right now. Like it's super hot. And I went, no. So I had to go look. And I kind of, in my mind, before I even saw a picture of it, I already had something pretty close in my mind. And I was not disappointed. But if you're a man and you buy one of those, seriously?
I don't think people do, though. I think
you should punch yourself in the face as hard as you possibly can. And turn in your man card. It's over. You might as well get a fanny pack and a man purse and just call it a day, and that's it. Forget it.
Yeah, I mean, it's social media, right? It's like people just come up with these silly memes and people spend hours and hours looking at it and sharing it, and it turns into something. Nothing literally turns into something because who knows if that even exists? Like, who knows if that even is a thing?
Oh, they have a GoFundMe thing, and it went crazy. So they got the funding for it. So if it's not, they're going to take some money and run. But they got the funding.
Well, you guys remember bedazzled jeans when those first came out, and that was kind of a joke?
Dude, they're still hot here in Kentucky. So I mean,
as
redneck as it is, I'm sure it is in Texas and Alabama and Georgia.
Better than seeing a total redneck with cowboy boots on, bedazzled jeans, and a flannel. I have seen it numerous times, and I know who bought him the pants. I know. And I'm like, no. If you've got glitter and your pockets are way bigger than your ass cheek, dude, have you seen that commercial where the kid is in the baseball dugout and he's got rhinestones on the side of his hat that says something, like play hard, something like that. And it's all these rhinestones, and the player next to him goes, nice hat, or something like that. And he goes, yeah, my mom got a bedazzler. And he gets up and his name is all in those little sequins. It is hilarious. And his ass is all done up. You got to see it.
I have not spent enough time in the South, apparently. That's
they're around. They're big in Southern California. They've been big for a couple years, at least 3 or 4 years now, and guys are still wearing them. Bell-bottomed, bedazzled jeans. I'm sorry if any of you guys are listening and you're wearing these. I'm just sorry.
I don't think they're really your target demographic, to be honest.
No, I don't think it's our target demo.
No.
We probably should get into why we're here, and that is paleo. I'm sorry, I got to go on tangents because I couldn't control myself on a couple of those.
No, I'm excited. I know what not to get you for Christmas this year. No rompers. I got it. Okay.
Yeah. You know, I will say one thing about the rompers though. When I told my wife about that and jokingly said I'd get a pair, all she said was, "Oh, just wait till you go take a shit." And that ended the whole conversation. Exactly. I was like, all right, yeah, I can't really figure it. But see, all you have to do is just put Velcro down the back, and you're good to go. That's what I said.
Geez,
you just have to alter it.
Oh, I can't wait till how many guys soil themselves in their romper outfit. Just becomes a man diaper. That's all it's going to become.
Just get shit-faced wasted.
Struggling, a little drunk, hungover, trying to get out of that bad boy.
Or fall and just nail their head on the porcelain. And
there goes the romper.
Yeah, exactly.
Soiled.
One death, that's all it takes.
Wow. Wow.
Laying on the ground, romper full of shit, bleeding out the head. That's all you need to see on like Facebook or Instagram, and it's over. You know?
I am glad I'm not in college. That's all I can say. I am glad I'm not in college.
Oh, I don't think I would be allowed. I'd get kicked out of campus. I don't even think I'm allowed anymore. I'd get kicked out of the safe zone for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. All right. So let's jump back. Let's jump into paleo. I've been a pretty good follower of paleo, but I have kind of fell off. I got hurt about 2 months ago. My back got hurt. So I stopped working out. When I do that, inevitably, as soon as I stop working out, my diet gets off course and I'm back to the sugar addiction and just eating like crap. So I do want to talk about paleo just to kind of get my mind wrapped around it. So when I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm focused and I can get this back on track. Mm-hmm. So what would you tell me? Say, all right, I want to get back on track. What would you tell me to get me back going in the direction I need to go on?
Well, you're talking to the right person because I have some sugar weaknesses as well. And I'm the first person to say that I'm not always 100% of the time, 100% paleo. I don't know anyone who is. That's not realistic. But I think what's really, really important is to know what kind of person you are inside. This is getting deep already, but listen, when you talk about moderation versus abstaining, when you talk about 80-20 versus, super strict, all of these things, you need to figure out what kind of person you are because, and we'll get into this later, we were talking about it offline, but with the keto thing, with the fasting thing, all of these things that come up that seem sort of like the new hot thing that everyone needs to try, that is super effective for some people and not for others. You need to know what your goals are and how you respond and react to certain things. So I know, for example, I've done a lot of experimenting. I don't do as well with fasting. And I know a lot of women don't do as well with fasting. Some do, but a lot of women don't. And so in some cases, it's trying to force something that is putting stress on your body that's going to mitigate any of the advantages that you're getting from fasting, right? So if you're not a fasting person, you don't have to feel guilty and you don't have to feel like you're wasting your time and it's pointless. Let me just eat whatever. That doesn't work for you, right? So in your case, maybe when you are injured and you're not able to exercise as much, you need to go cold turkey with the sugar and you need to eat no sugar. Because if you're like me, I would rather eat no cookies than eat one cookie. It just doesn't do it for me, right? Like I love sugar. I love sweet things. It triggers me. So if I'm going to, if I want to eat something sweet, I really want to go into it. And that can kind of be a slippery slope. And then I'm like all off track. If I get into like a very healthy, whole foods, unprocessed, reasonable sort of diet where I'm eating plenty of food, I'm not measuring, I'm not going overboard, but I'm not eating anything processed or sugary or whatever, junky. I don't feel the need to eat sugar and I don't eat it and I don't eat any of it because it triggers me. So maybe for you, while you're not able to exercise as much and while you're, having some of these craving issues, you need to go cold turkey. You need to not have it in your house and you need to eat, up your volume and protein and vegetables and stuff like that. And maybe you're going to be miserable for a couple of weeks. Maybe you're going to have some headaches and feel low energy and you're going to have really bad cravings. And you kind of just need to get through it, up your fat a little bit too. And again, it's like, it's experiment with that. Do that for 3 or 4 weeks. If you're not noticing any improvements, if you still feel like crap, then maybe you do need to say, okay, maybe I'm the 80-20 person, and maybe I'll have my Saturdays where I have some beer and some cake, but that's it. I can't do it any other day. Set some boundaries for yourself. It's trying a couple things, giving it the, reasonable amount of time to let it work, and seeing what works for you. No one way is going to work for everybody.
And here's the thing. And this is the frustrating part. Is when I'm on point with it and I go like 2 weeks on point, I feel so good. I feel so good. But like you said, my cravings are there. And that's one thing I just wish would go away, but it won't go away. And then it's like one little thing triggers another.
Your cravings aren't going to go away, Dwayne. We've talked about this. We're hardwired for sweet, and primarily sweet. And it's because in nature, sweet is hard to find. Calories in sugar are very, very difficult to find in nature. So that's why we've never turned off that gene expression. That we use that, and we have that desire because we needed it in order, once we found it, to eat it, to consume it. We have that desire all the time because our genetics are very smart on how they work and adapt. The reason we haven't turned it off is because there was no reason to turn it off. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because you couldn't overindulge yourself in nature for the most part. Even with honey, honey's hard to find in nature, and it has this crazy thing called bees that get really pissed off if you try and get into their hive. They do not like it. So it's not like you could go free range and just eat sugary crap all the time. You just couldn't. So our bodies went, why turn that off? What's the point? There's no point in turning it off. But today, we have it. So it's around. And Ashleigh gave you the best advice. And this advice I've given to hundreds of clients. Don't have it in the house, because I'm the same way. I buy a bag of cookies. I get it home. Heck, I don't even get it home. I'm eating it in the car. Next thing I know, 40 minutes later, my belly's all bloated out and there's like 3 cookies left. Yeah. And it's just the way it is.
And I mean, you said, you're right. Sugar cravings are never going to go away. And especially for people who are more, because there are some of us that are more predisposed to having that kind of intense reaction. But that doesn't mean that you are going to suffer from constant sugar cravings. If you find the diet that works for you, and maybe it has some sugars in it, but maybe it's more of a focus on some certain kind of fruits and vegetables and starches that are sugars that are okay for you. You can get to a point where you're not constantly like, my life is hell, I wish I was eating pie right now. You can absolutely, level yourself out when you find a diet and an exercise, a workout plan or whatever that works for you, and a lifestyle that works for you. So.
And binging on sugar every once in a while is not a bad thing. To be honest with you, people kind of freak out on that. And I'll be honest, there's times, like I said, I'll gorge myself. Do I do it every day? No. Do I do it every once in a while? Yes. And again, I'll give that example. They've shown that, in tribes that find honey, they will literally gorge themselves until they're ill, till they can not eat one more, handful or dip their fingers of honey at all. They are just gorged. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, doing it every once in a while to keep your sanity. And the whole theory, as you know, Ash, of carb loading. Yeah. In the competitive bodybuilding world and everything, there's carb cycling, and it gets real technical. And I tell people, don't worry about that stuff. If you're an average everyday person, be consistent. Again, the 80-20 rule for most people is totally fine. If you have something sugary here and there, it's not going to kill you. You're not going to become a diabetic. Just be careful with it. And I'm the same way, man. I have a sweet tooth. I have a vicious one. And if I get something really good that I like around me, it's gone. I mean, I will gorge myself, and I like it. And I feel guilty afterwards? You know what happens though? After you do that, I've noticed if you're doing things right, not only do you feel crappy, obviously, you feel worse than if you eat it all the time, but the guilt gets you. So I'm good. Once I do it, I'm like, I'm good for a while. I don't need to dip into that, 5 donuts again for a while.
Mm-hmm. And I think some of it's about picking your battles too. And Gary, I think we actually talked about this in the podcast that we did for Paleo Magazine, but as an adult, you decide what the foods or treats that are worth it for you and which ones aren't. And you make the adult decision, like, you know, if you're at work and there's cookies around, or if you're at a party and they've got some kind of cocktail or something that you're not really that into, but it's there. I mean, be an adult and don't do it. And then when you find the thing that you like, eat that and don't feel guilty about it. It's not a moral thing. Food isn't a morality thing. It's you eat something and it has consequences or it doesn't. And you just, you know that going in, and be an adult about it. And I think because we live in such an easy, comfortable world where everything is accessible to us, every food, every comfort, we think we're entitled to it. And I have friends who are like, I want to, you know, diet, but I want to be able to eat all this. And I want to drink, you know, half a bottle of wine every night. And I want to do this and I want to do that. And I'm like, you can drink a bottle of wine every night, or you can look the way you want to look. You can't do both, and you can't have everything. So you have to be an adult and you have to pick your battles. You know, if you want to look a certain way, there are some sacrifices you have to make. And if you want to drink wine every night, you have to be okay with how that's going to make you feel. You know, it's there's no right or wrong. It's just the decisions that you make.
Well, the perception that and I've gotten this in my world, people think I just dumped out of my mom's womb and came out, you know, an athlete in great shape and all this, and that I look this way, that all the time. You know, you don't. Those magazine covers, A, are usually photoshopped pretty heavily.
Absolutely.
B, these men and women who are fitness models or athletes, and they're doing this, they know ahead of time. So they're preparing for this cover. They're getting ready. These people do not look this way all the time. And if you did, and I've actually known people who try it, and especially guys who do, and women who do a lot of magazine covers and do a lot of shoots, they are miserable. They are cranky. They're pissy. They feel like crap. Trust me, it just doesn't work that way. There's a genetic freak every once in a while that is just ripped. They eat Burger King, they have extra fries, and they're just ripped.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about that. It is what it is. And exactly, you have to take this as, what are your goals? I mean, are your goals to be ripped? Well, for the average person, you'll get there, but you're not going to sustain that. No one does. Like I just said, no one ever sustains that. So you may ebb and flow. And if you're not doing magazine shoots, do you really want to do that? In my mind, what's the point? You know, are you going to impress your friends, you know, that you got a 6-pack for 12 months, but you feel crappy and you're angry?
Yeah.
And you haven't had a cookie in 3 months?
I think people who have never had maybe a 6-pack think that it's the answer because they just haven't, you know, and we look at all these magazines, you look at all these pictures of these jacked, perfect people, and you think they seem happy. They seem to have their stuff together. So that I'm sure that'll work for me. And I mean, theoretically, we all know that's not the answer, but I can say, you know, in my experience, I've had abs and it's cool, but it doesn't really matter. No one gives a shit. They're like, cool, you have abs. That's cool. And then you go on with your life. And then I go on with it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. So
actually, no. I go around. People don't notice. My shirt ends right here. I just wear like a old.
You wear those 80s mesh football jerseys that they cut off at the midsection.
I still have.
I mean, I do kind of like those. I'll be honest. Yeah, I mean, it's cliche, and like the word almost is meaningless now, but it is about balance, and everybody's idea of balance is different. Because for me, the shape that I want to be in is different than maybe what somebody else would be happy with or whatever. And some people want, you know, to lean more towards that. I want to enjoy my life and I want to go out for dinner 3 times a week and I want to make sure that I can drink wine when I want, but I also still want to fit into my bathing suit. Everybody has a different balance, but you got to find it. You got to be clear about what that is. And then you can create the lifestyle around it that gives you what you want. But you can't just have this vague, I want to do whatever I want, but also look like a cover model.
But as you know, that's kind of what the dieting community preaches. Every marketing that you see out there is eat what you want and be skinny. And you're like, come on. And they show a piece of chocolate cake and, you know, a shake and you're all, it just doesn't work that way. Go to Walmart. Trust me. You look around, it doesn't work that way. Those people are eating too much cake.
Well, as you said, though, we're hardwired to, you know, want those sweet things, but we're also hardwired to be lazy and we're hardwired to want to take the easy road. So that kind of marketing is always going to work because there are always people who are like, I mean, that sounds good. I'll give it a try. I'll give you my money.
Yeah. And you're right. The path of least resistance. And I've preached this forever is especially when it comes to health, it's painful. Any change in life, anything you do, it doesn't matter. Career change, being a parent, whatever, it's painful. Any drastic change in your life. And health is it's funny, it's the most important, and yet it's the one we struggle with the most. And it's just because, like we said, we're surrounded with choices that humans have never had historically. We've never had access to food and to heavily processed food and amounts of sugar ever like this in the history of humankind. So this is all new to us, so Chambers, what I'd recommend is keep reading my books, because you're obviously not reading them well enough. But but I mean, and it's funny actually, because I deal with this with my family. Me and Dwayne have known each other forever. He has to hear it from you instead of me.
Yeah, exactly. We're too close.
We're too close. You got to tell him, you tell him what I say in your own words, and he'll listen to you. He ain't listen to shit I say. He's all,
hey, I did great. Hey, I did great when I first started doing it. It's just, I think I get bored with anything, and just with the diet, I get bored, and there's no reason to be bored. There really isn't. I mean, it's easy to fall into a routine and when you want to be healthy and you kind of do all right, well, let's just have some chicken and add some vegetables to it every day. I mean, it is easy because that's quick to be bored, but there really is no reason to be bored, because paleo, again, people can say that it's it's a fad or it's a trend or it's just a name stuck to the newest diet. Yeah. I mean, I really believe in it, in that at its core, it's about eating real food. And there's nothing trendy or silly about that. And people are using it to make money, but at the core of it, it's eat healthy, real food that makes you feel good. And there is a ton of healthy, real food that makes you feel good. And you can make that delicious. You can do a lot with it.
The true paleo principles are, the principles are solid. Yeah. It's when you get outside of the principles and where it gets into a little murkiness, it gets a little confusing. But when you look at the paleo diet based on Paleolithic era, you look and it's looking at what humans historically have consumed from 10,000 years to roughly 2.4 million years, because our physiology and that hasn't changed that much. Our digestion, what's changed is the food, not us, not the chemistry so much, even though it's starting to drastically start changing now. But the principles are solid, and I always call it what it is. It's technically, today, you call it an elimination diet. That's technically what it is. When you throw it in today, I'm not talking about historically as humans, I'm talking today. If you look at today's diet, what everyone consistently eats, today it's considered elimination diet, because you're eliminating all the crap that's making you ill, basically. And it's hard for people to fathom. And, when you say, hey, you got to cut out dairy, that's paleo, people go, oh. And I'll tell you from my experience working with clients and dealing with this, modern dairy, and not only modern, but even organic, grass-fed, raw, most humans are not able to process dairy. It's just a fact. And people fight it. My mom is 70 years old, and she's fighting dairy to the bitter end. And it makes her sick. It causes her all kinds of health problems. She won't admit it. We've gone back and forth for decades. She won't listen to a word I say, because I'm just the dumb son who used to, change my diapers and pick my nose and eat my boogers and all that when I was a kid. So what would I know?
What's changed?
Not much. I just, not much at all. But with that, you kind of have to pick and choose with that too, because as you age, those intolerances become stronger. I could play with dairy in my younger years. I can't play with dairy anymore. Dairy wrecks me.
Funny story. I did a DNA, the 23andMe, and then a DNA Fit. Both of these, I did both of the testing, and I actually interviewed the DNA Fit guy for a podcast that's coming up. And I have, whatever the genes are, that I'm one of the rare people that can tolerate dairy into adulthood, and I take full advantage of that. So.
Nice.
But it is, you're saying it's hard to find good quality stuff. And I mean, now, if you actually want good quality, real, raw milk or whatever, it's very expensive and hard to come by. But yeah, it's people ignore what's right in front of their face, because they think I grew up with pasta and bread and dairy and cheese and all of these things. And that's what I'm going to eat, even if all the time they're sick. And
Ashleigh, what is your ethnicity, if you don't mind me asking, out of pure science curiosity?
I have a bunch of stuff. Like I'm a mutt. I mean, if you look at the 23andMe, it's European, obviously.
Okay.
But
Northern European or Southern European?
It's like,
it'd have to be Southern, right? Spanish.
I should actually bring it up. Yeah, there's like it's like I've got like Balkan and Iberian and
okay.
Yeah, like all kinds of weird stuff. Not like, I'm if you look at pretty much any white person, they're like pie chart on 23andMe, it's like British, and then there's some Irish and Scottish, and then there's like a little slice that's all kinds of other weird stuff. My slice is a little bit bigger, maybe, with some of these, like Spanish and that kind of stuff.
Well, Americans are primarily German. German
yeah,
is
I've got
the
some German
largest,
too. Yeah,
the largest race in Northern America is German, and I think the second is Spanish, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. So it's a weird ethnic. That's why I asked you Northern or Southern, because if you're like a Northern Swede, their tolerance and their genetics towards dairy are far different than say a Pacific Islander.
Yeah,
they're totally different, and that's why I had asked. Well, I have Swedish in me. I'm Irish, English, Danish, and supposedly Swedish. I'm pretty sure those are wrong. So
you should do this 23andMe. It's very interesting.
I'm going to, and I want to, and I need to, because I know my family's totally lying to me. I know there's been some shenanigans going on in the past. I won't talk about that, but there's some I want to see, just because it's interesting too. And that's why people always, when I ask, I go, hey, what's your ethnicity? They think, you can't ask me. I'm going, no, honestly, I'm just trying to gauge what your tolerances could be. It's not guaranteed, but I always tell people you have to eat to the individual as well. For me, I'm one of those people that looks at food as fuel. Mm-hmm. Like me and Ashley talked about, remember I said most people today think they have to have a food orgasm in their mouth for every meal. Mm-hmm. It's got to be a cornucopia of flavors. It's got to have everything they want. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, you think cows, they eat grass, and then they eat some more grass, and then they eat some more grass, and then they might eat that grass.
If they could eat cookies, they'd eat them.
You know what I mean, though?
You give a horse a mint and they love it. So I know that they dig it too. Yeah. Apples, carrots. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying is it just depends. And speaking of ketogenic, you said that, like I said, I don't keep tabs on the paleo world too tightly as I used to. But you've said that I remembered keto had come in a while ago, and now that's becoming big. What have you seen in that trend?
Yeah, it's really interesting how much it's grown, I would say, even in the last year or so. So Bulletproof Coffee, Dave Asprey, that Bulletproof brand is probably the biggest, most maybe successful at this point in terms of just kind of getting it out there for people. It's the Bulletproof fat coffee thing is huge. So at PaleoFX this year, there were maybe half a dozen different companies selling some version of either pre-made or pre-packaged bulletproof coffee, essentially. So whether it's sort of MCT and grass-fed butter or coconut oil and, some kind of mixture that you put in your coffee that are these delicious sort of fat bombs that are meant to be, I'm assuming, meal replacements in the morning and things like that. But even exogenous ketone companies, a lot of them, whereas maybe 2 years ago, I wouldn't have seen any, now there are quite a few. And that's in the conversation now, like the panels and sessions, people are talking about keto. It's really, really growing fast.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned actually both that, because like I said, I've dealt with ketogenic diets for a long time, and I use it as a tool as well. I have in the past. I've gotten away from working one-on-one with people. I focus more on writing and other stuff now. But I still know my nutrition, and the exogenous ketones are bullshit, people. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to get hate mail or whatever. It's bullshit. It doesn't work. The chemistry is not there. I've seen all this crap. I read all the studies that have been done, what little there has been done. You cannot consume something like that in order to kick yourself into ketosis quickly. There's a whole biochemistry pattern that has to happen for that to kick in. You just can't consume a powder.
It's
frustrating.
Like some of the research that I was reading, it seems like generally the consensus is that those are unnecessary at best, and you're kind of wasting your money at worst. But I guess the understanding is that even if you're putting exogenous ketones in your body, A, you may not be processing them or using them at all. B, if you aren't in ketosis, you are still burning glucose. So you might just be burning both. You're kind of like, it's not putting you in ketosis.
Yeah. The chemistry inside your body, it has to go through a chain. There has to be some reactions that take place for you to kick into ketosis. Mm-hmm. You can't force your body to quickly go into ketosis if you're not in ketosis. You know what I mean? And the people it works well for are fat adapted people. I shouldn't say works well for. They've seen a slight increase in performance in athletes. Well, most athletes, if they're training correctly and eating correctly, are going to be going in and out of a form of ketosis. And I always say this too. The people who call themselves ketogenic experts are actually misusing the term ketosis. Ketosis is an overabundance of ketone bodies in the bloodstream. You do not want to continuously be in ketosis. It is actually toxic to the human body. So does that make sense? An overabundance of ketone bodies. Does that mean your body naturally will not stay in that state? And if it does, it actually can kick you into a pH blood level that can become more acidic over time. Now, can you well, yeah. But people take that as, well, Gary's saying you're going to go into an acidic mode instant. No, it takes a lot of time. And it takes a lot of doing things wrong unless you have a genetic disposition or you have a genetic mutation, which is either pre-diabetic or diabetic. You can have something like acid ketosis can happen. But that's what I mean. I just laugh at people. I've met people go, Gary, I got a question for you. I've been doing ketogenic diet for a year, and I just not seeing the results. It worked great for a while, and now it's not working anymore. And I go, you think?
Yeah.
And I go, what? I ask him. I go, at what point of living would you ever be exposed to your body consuming nothing but fat? Exactly. And they look at me and they go, I don't know. I go, starvation. Unless you're from either Antarctica, and you wouldn't be found. There's no life in Antarctica.
And what's their body composition too? People who are, that are living on super high fat diets. I mean, it's effective for them and it's good, but is that the beach body you're looking for? Not well. And those people live in completely different regions of the world. Yeah. They have hundreds of thousands of years of adaptation to that climate, to that region, to that diet. That doesn't mean you are going to. So, and I tell them it's usually a 2 to 3 week window. It's the same with low carb. It's you can use it as a tool and it works. It totally works, but you have to transition out of it because your body is very smart. And once it thinks it's in starvation mode, first thing it does is downregulates your metabolism and you start to put the weight back on because your body's going, well, all I'm getting is fat. And not only that, but fat is 9 calories per gram. Protein and carbohydrates are 4 grams per calorie, or 4 calories per gram. So it's almost a 2.5 to 1 ratio of calories of fat to carbohydrates and protein. Yeah. So if you're consuming a lot of dense fat, guess what? You're getting a ton of calories and you can't process all those calories. So what does fat do? It stores as fat. Yeah. Those are two of my biggest caveats for keto when people ask me about it. And to be fair, even like proponents of keto, most of them say it's not something you do forever and all the time. You cycle in and out of it, and that certain groups should never do it. If you're trying to actively gain muscle, if you're pregnant, if you're young, if you're all of these things, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
It's an advanced technique. I call it an advanced technique. Or if you're training someone, and they're far enough along and you've got them into the basic principles, it's just like using, intermittent fasting, which we'll talk about as well. I use those tools very similarly. They work very similar because it's kind of a similar concept. Mm-hmm. But you're right. It's one of those, you're not going to go out and lose weight and get into bikini shape by going ketogenic. unless you're close already.
Right. And I think that the two biggest issues with keto for me, for people who are not, high level athletes or have people that know what they're doing, monitoring what they're doing, the two biggest things are what you alluded to, that it's so calorically dense. Like for me, when I try to do keto and I'm eating like 3 macadamia nuts, like that's not a lifestyle I want to, be into. That sucks. Like I want volume. I want to eat more food. It's very easy. People talk all the time like, oh, I get into keto and I can't eat enough because it's so satisfying. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but I can eat a stick of butter. Like I can eat way too many calories. I can get fat on keto very, very quickly and very easily.
Oh yeah.
The other issue being that most people who aren't really monitoring it or don't really know exactly what they're doing think they're in ketosis and they're not. So if you're not, testing your blood glucose, and if you're not actually testing these things and paying attention to it, if you're just suddenly eating high fat and you think you're in ketosis, you have no idea really. So how can you even say if it's working or it's not? You don't know what it's doing. And it's so hard to both get into it and then stay into it and not get knocked out of it, that it just, to me, seems like unless you need to do it for some reason, why would you? That's my personal opinion.
Well, and we're highly adaptive. Again, multiple energy systems. So we're going to use carbohydrates, protein, and fat as energy. Yeah. Now, the reason you can store unlimited amounts of fat is because that is technically our primary fuel source and survival mechanism. Does that mean you're going to use that all the time? Absolutely not. It's a slow burning fuel. If you have to go into fight or flight, you're going to hit glucose. You have to get glucose in your bloodstream quickly. You can't use ketone bodies. It's not going to work the same. And that's what I'm telling people. You're always moving in and out throughout the day. It's just like, metabolism. We've been taught that you can change your metabolism, that it's a set point. Your metabolism does this all day long. It's moving in and out. It's adapting to where you need to go. Now, can you change your metabolism if it's slow and you consume too many calories, too many bad empty calories, and you don't exercise and you're overweight? Yes, but that doesn't mean you're going to reset it to something else. It just means it's going to adapt to the new lifestyle, but it's still going to be doing this. When you don't, it's more like this, it just doesn't do anything for the most part. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean, there's so much confusing information out there. And that's why paleo is such an easy way to go. Because if you follow the right principles, you don't go down too many rabbit holes. I'm a Lauren Cordain guy. I love the guy. I've interviewed him, talked to him several times. I love Lauren Cordain. Nicest guy in the world. He just breaks out. Some of it I don't agree with. Me and him have talked about it, but his basic principles have been set.
Yeah.
You follow those, you're good. If you want to go primal's different than paleo. Primal just says if you want to add dairy and some grains in there and you're okay with it, fine. But people mistake that for having cheese for breakfast, lunch, dinner, having bread. And it's like, no. That's not what we're saying. We're saying you can do it here and there. And primal is kind of I would call it the 80, where you flow into the 80-20. You use paleo as the tool to kind of reset everything, figure out what your intolerances are. And again, you don't know, because some things that you could not tolerate before, you'll be able to tolerate after you clean your diet, after you do strict paleo. Then there's things that you thought you could tolerate that you can't tolerate anymore.
Yeah,
it changes. And that's, everyone is so different. And as you age, it changes again. As I'm finding out, I have food intolerances I never had. Then there's foods I can eat that I thought I could never eat. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre.
Yeah. And I said I wanted to talk about my wife in here. I think this is kind of a perfect time because she's kind of struggling right now. And you're talking about earlier about kind of finding what fits for you. And she's in that process right now. So she's been working out hard for a year. She's been doing paleo, and as she says, a paleo driven diet where she'll have her sugar here and there. And she's one that can actually she can do a piece of cake and then not do it again for a week. So she definitely, she is lucky in that, but she's doing intermittent fasting now, but she's a mom. She's a mom of 3. She's had twins, and we were talking about genetics. So, after you become a mom, your physiologically changes. So, her she works out, her upper body looks great, her legs look great, but she's stuck with the midsection that she just cannot get rid of, and she's not going for the super taut beach body, but she would like that to go away. And that's why she's bouncing around. What's some advice you would give her to say, one, you said something, you don't necessarily, don't super focus on six pack, but what advice would you give her?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with like trying to have some abs. Like I'm always trying to have some abs. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just about, if it's to the detriment of everything else. But what is her intermittent fasting protocol right now? What's she doing?
Well, she's what she's doing is, I think her feed window is like 6 to 8 hours. There's some days that are high carb days. There are other days that kind of go on. So it's counting macros. This is what she said. So she has today. This is what you're supposed to do, and she has a chart, and she tries to hit that chart. And
where did she get her macro breakdown?
I was about ready to ask the same thing.
Yeah, that I can't tell you. The person she's kind of following, I don't do it, so I don't know exactly what she's going to do. But this person that she's been using has a following and had a lot of success. So
here's a big problem with that. I need it mapped out for me. I need it step by step. Here's the problem with that. Again, everyone's different. Mm-hmm. So the cycle that she's giving her, depending on the macro breakdown, what's it based on? You know what I mean?
Her, probably the one that created it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's not based on the individual using it. So what she'll have to do is she's going to have to adjust those macros to feel. It's very simple in the sense that the easiest way to know if you're not getting enough carbs is you start to feel run down, you start to have problems sleeping, and you become irritable. I mean, those are the basics. And you become achy. You can start to become a little achy. But the not sleeping well is like the first indicator. That's the first thing I know. If I'm overdoing it and I'm not getting enough carbs, I can't sleep. Mm-hmm. And so you have to kind of play around with it, and it changes. She's giving you this macro profile, but what is Emily's day exercise? What is she burning? Only she knows that. So she's going to have to figure out to adapt that to her workout regimen, her exercise pattern.
Well, the whole thing goes with the workout regimen and everything too. So,
is she generally happy with her food? Like, does she feel, like she's getting enough? Does she feel?
Yeah. She's always talked about, she's high energy. She's a high energy person. She definitely doesn't have the lulls that I have. So she's very lucky. So, she, like I said, her paleo diet is pretty much on point all the time. She does have high energy. She sleeps well,
what are the workouts? Generally, what's she doing?
Generally she does, like, all right, you have to do these many squats, this many, whatever. It's almost like, not CrossFit without the weights.
So it's like
circuit training.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And how often is she doing that?
She does, like one day she'll have running and sprints. So she'll do that. And the next day she'll do her, upper body workouts and then a lower body workout and things like that. So, every day it's a little bit different, but it's, specific to what that day calls for.
Well, we all know, even though I hate even saying it, it's like I have to say it to myself every day, but we all know that diet is way more important than exercise. Mm-hmm. You can out exercise a bad. Her diet seems pretty sorted out, but for exercise, there is a lot you can do. And I wanted to get into this a little bit. I know eventually we were going to talk about, how to be healthy and paleo in New York and in big cities and stuff. But one thing, and again, she has kids. Like I don't have children, so I'm very selfish and I can just take care of myself.
And a husband that works second shift. So she is
a
single mom every day.
I got 3 people to take care of. So, but there's a lot to be said for, so everyone's doing HIIT right now, high intensity interval training, which I think is great. I think you can overdo that. You probably shouldn't be doing, if you're truly doing HIIT, which is supposed to exhaust you in a very little time, you probably shouldn't be doing that multiple times a week. You should be doing that maybe once or twice a week. I really strongly recommend heavy weights, especially for women. I think it's so important to build muscle, especially as a woman and especially as a woman who, is, once you hit like 30, you're losing your muscle a lot faster. having muscle helps, keep your body together. It helps you keep from being injured. It helps make you look better. The other, like all these women who want to be toned and they want to lose weight, it's about having muscle under your fat, because we're women. We're always going to have a little bit of fat on our bodies. It's having the muscle underneath that makes you look nice, and it makes you strong, and it makes you functional. So lifting weights, lift heavier weights. I just want to like scream this into the void for women. Lift heavier weights than you're lifting. You go into the gym and you see it's always the same. And I'm a big meathead, so I've been in the gym since I was 16 years old, and you see men lifting weights that are too heavy for them, and you see women lifting weights that are too light. And you've got these women standing here with 5-pound dumbbells that are doing this all day long. And it's like, women's muscle is exactly the same as men's. We just have much less of it, and we start out with much less. So we have to work that much harder to get, muscle that looks like we have tone on our bodies. So, and that's something you can't start from scratch. Like, you need to have somebody work with you. You don't want to just go in there and start trying to deadlift 200 pounds, but lifting heavier weights is so important, and it makes you feel so good, and it raises your testosterone, which is good. And it's good. That's good for your sleep. So all of that stuff. Okay. But anyway, I'm ranting because I get really into the exercise thing. But so the other good thing that's easy that you can start immediately is lots of low intensity, steady state stuff. And basically by that, I just mean walking a lot. That is the best exercise for anyone, whether you're an athlete or you're a severely overweight person who's never been in a gym before. Everybody should be walking as much as possible. And that's what when I try to lean out a little bit, in addition to the workouts that I'm doing, I walk everywhere. I walk everywhere all the time, because it's the natural state of being for human beings. That's what we're supposed to do. It's healthy. It's low impact. It's great exercise. It gets you outside. Like, walk as much as you possibly can. It's going to help.
Well, there's a reason why we have 25% of our bones are in our feet.
Yeah.
It's a pretty basic concept. Our feet were the first automobile, I mean, that's how we got around. And I always tell people that too. I think Ashleigh's been reading my books. But I've been talking about walking for several years now. And because people always wondered, I always start every client who's overweight, I start them on walking. I say, you need to walk 30 to 45 minutes every night. And they look at me and they go, what? Huh? That's my work. I go, yeah, we're not working out until you can walk. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but I would say you might want to go purchase Arnold Schwarzenegger's The Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding.
I've got it in my other room. Oh yeah.
I have both versions. I have the old one and the newer one.
Nice.
I've been doing Arnold principles since I was about 15. So I grew up with that, and people laugh and they go, that old school shit. He was a crappy governor. What? No. These guys, when you look at Lou Ferrigno, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Franco Columbo, what was it? Zane, and all those guys, Joe Wielder, all these guys, these guys had the concept down to a T. And men and women, this sounds very strange, and it's probably really weird to people today, can work out and lift weights identical. Yes. There is no difference between the sexes when it comes to pumping iron. Yes. If you were to watch what I do, I've been doing this for a long time. So working out to me, I don't even think about it. People go, you don't write it down. I've been working out for decades. I go in and I know what I have to do. Mm-hmm. And so I change it. It's different every day, but my principles always go back to the Arnold principles. That's where they always go. Push, pull. There's certain techniques you can use, but it's always using major muscle groups, because they also work the smaller muscle groups because they're supporting muscle groups. Mm-hmm. The theory is so basic. And that's what I would recommend because all the exercises are in there. There's pictures, and it's split up. It has men and women in it. But the women's is not that different. You could just watch the men's and go through those routines and those exercises. It's the same stuff for the most part. Mm-hmm. And you said that she was having a hard time losing around her waist. It could be a couple things. She's had 3 kids. There's a lot of stretching that goes on. Some women, it just doesn't come back. It's the way it is. Some women gain more weight during pregnancy than others. It's the way it goes. Or I was going to ask, how much caffeine does she intake per day?
Hardly any.
I would say that there's a good chance that she may not be able to get rid of that, because that's usually due to high cortisol levels. So it's going to be caffeine, stress, which we definitely know that could be a factor. But cortisol is the gut hormone. I mean, that's what gives you your gut fat. So I would look at stress levels. If she doesn't do caffeine, well, because caffeine is a cortisol raiser. I mean, that's what it does. It gets everything going. It pumps up adrenaline, gets all your good, serotonin. It gets everything going. It's the happy drug.
Mm-hmm.
But what that has a side effect. And the side effect is if you drink a lot of it, it taxes your adrenals. And that's where it comes through alcohol. People who drink a lot of alcohol and caffeine, both, that's why they have those pooches. They're just skinny and it's like, boom. It's just this round mound.
Yeah, that's what everybody is at work, man. They drink Red Bulls all night long.
Yep.
And eat crap. And I mean, it's like young guys with just guts.
Yeah. It's bad.
And that's the biggest predeterminant of actual health is your waistline. You can look at every other factor. You can do all the blood work you want. You can do every genetic you can do everything. It boils down to one measurement, your waist. Isn't that crazy?
Around your organs. It's that bad fat around your organs. That's what'll get you.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. If she's at a sticking point, the usual method is you either have to add a little more exercise or you have to drop carbs or both. But that's the balance she has to find. We don't know. We don't know what her tolerances are. She has to find that spot. So what I would recommend in the beginning is cut the carbs down, start checking her carbs every day and figure it out and just cut back a little bit, cut back a little more. And that's what I mean. You'll know because you'll start to get tired. You'll start to have hard times getting through your workouts. You have to test it. And that's what I mean. It's a feel thing because everyone wants the magic bullet and the magic answer. And that's why I've been asked to write numerous step-by-step courses, A to Z, and I morally refuse to do it because it doesn't help you. I can only give you so much information and then the rest is on you. And that's what happens with people who follow the A to Z courses that tell them what to eat, what to exercise, when to exercise. You only go so far with that. And then you have to figure out how to use your own tools and work with it. But when you say, Ashleigh, I would recommend just pulling back carbs first.
Yeah. And maybe doing like a little bit more research on like what her actual macros are. And if she did just get a blanket sort of macro for like, you're generally this height and weight, because I mean, there's a lot of room for moving around with that.
Huge amount.
But then sort of just the final kind of word on the exercise thing. That's why like that low intensity, like the walking is a good idea because that is not going to raise your cortisol. If you go for a nice brisk walk, half an hour to an hour, as much as you can, just enough that like you're just kind of getting your heart rate up. That's not stressful. That's going to help you sleep. That's going to make you feel better. And that's good for everybody.
Relaxing.
Exactly. And then the heavy lifting, switching out a couple, like if she's doing HIIT 4 times a week, maybe I'm just throwing that out there.
Way too much.
That's too much. Switch out a couple of those with going into the gym and doing like a couple compound lifts, like maybe again, I don't know how far along in that kind of, what kind of skill set she has, but squatting, doing some body weight stuff, doing some like, lifting heavy weights, because that also does not really spike your cortisol. You're not exhausting your body. You're not depleting yourself. It's like good for your hormones and it's good for your muscle growth. So switching that
high weight,
out,
low rep workouts.
Yeah.
Well, you move it around. You can do higher reps. You mix it all around, and you can mix it within the routine.
It's heavy stuff too, because again, it's like women, you go into the gym and they want to pick a weight that they know they can do. I can do this 3 sets 10 times and I can do it. And I know I can do it. Go in there and do a weight that you're going to fail at, because then you're working hard. Your muscles are going to have to adapt to something. You're doing something different and you're doing something hard, because if you can't I'm not saying put 250 pounds on your back and collapse, but when you're doing, you're doing some like shoulder, push presses, or you're doing a bench press with someone who's helping you or whatever, do some weights that maybe like are really challenging, that are heavier than you think you can do. I've had girlfriends come in and work out with me and, they're doing whatever they're doing with a 10-pound weight. And I'm like, here's 25, and they can do it. They just didn't think that they could, so they didn't try. And that's, I think, a very uniquely female thing in the gym, and not for everybody, but that's something that exists, and we need to change it. You need to put heavier weights in women's hands.
Well, and what you can do too is, like I said, when I say mix it all up, there will be days when I just lift heavier. Like that day's just heavy. But there's other days where I'll go in and the first exercise I do could be a major muscle group exercise that's heavy. but I'll be using a different muscle within that group, and I'll do lighter, higher rep, and I move it around. That's, I mean, there's so many different ways. You can do the same body parts and the same exercises by changing timing, by changing repetitions, and by changing your rest. You could change the entire workout off those simple, that's what I mean. Get the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding.
Yeah. Play around
with it. And, you know, also make sure you're enjoying it. I mean, people think I'm a sadist, but that's my therapy. I go in there, and that's the reason I don't go out and try and rip doors off cars and punch people in the face who aggravate me. Honestly, it's because we're born with a certain amount of tension already. You know what I mean? And that you have to get it out of you. I mean, we're meant to move. We're meant to exercise. We're meant to lift things. That's what the human body is developed for, survival.
Yeah.
So make sure, though, you get in there. And if she doesn't enjoy it, you know, there's certain things you don't enjoy. But if she really hates doing it, do something else. There's plenty to do. There's plenty of exercises. You know, go swimming one day. You know, break it up. Next day, ride your bike. That's another thing too. I'm a big fan. Been a bike rider since I had training wheels when I was like 3. I've been riding bikes, and I still ride bikes to this day. It's a great break, and not only that, but it's a great getaway. There's nothing better than being way out on a country road or out on a dirt trail, old logging trail out in the middle of nowhere. You're not worried about beating anyone in a race. You know, all you're doing is getting exercise and decompressing. And that's, I mean, mix it up, do something different. I know it's hard. You guys are busy, but heck, you got 3 kids. There's no better way than to wear them out than to take them out for a nice 2-3 mile walk. I know it's can be a little chaotic, but that's why I say, hey, if you're a family, go walk as a family. I walked with my grandparents as a kid. We went on a walk every single night. And I used to think it was and they were in their 50s and 60s. I thought it was for them. I think it was actually for them and us. You know, we'd stay there for the whole summer, and they're all, we got to wear these dipshits out. I mean, these kids are chaotic. So, I mean, you look at it that way too. It's that ketogenic stuff is interesting. And the HIIT, you got to remember where HIIT came from. It's got a nice little, sounds really, hardcore. High intensity interval training is basically flight or fight. That's where it was developed from. That's what it is. It's saying you're getting into that mode. It's to get the adrenaline pumping, you get the blood flowing, you get your heart rate up. Well, what's that mimicking? It's on. That's what it's mimicking. That's why you do not want to do that many times in a week. I do it once, twice a week at the most. That's it. Because you don't want to be ramping yourself up into that mode, because again, you're raising your cortisol levels up as a stress hormone. Cortisol is what wakes you up in the morning. Melatonin is what puts you to bed at night. So if your cortisol levels are always raised, that puts you into that fight or flight mode all the time. And that is a huge negative health consequence. And that's what addiction to caffeine does. That's exactly what caffeine does.
I had an issue with my Ju-Jitsu for a while, because the class that I was going to was at 7:30 at night, and I would go home just
wired.
Just literally crawling out of my skin, because you are very literally fighting for your life in a class like that. So I would go home and I wouldn't sleep at all. So I'm actually still kind of playing with timing, because it's, I've got to work on my schedules, but it's the same thing with HIIT. Like, I'm not going to go to the gym and do treadmill sprints after dinner. Like, it's because you have to down regulate. It takes too long. You don't want to put yourself through that. So but it's funny you mentioned the bike thing, because I had a interesting little experiment with bike riding this year. I rode bikes as a kid. Obviously I was into it, but it wasn't something that I did like a lot of as an adult. And in New York, as in a lot of cities, they have city bikes, which are those, bike sharing things, and they've got them all over the city. And I was convinced to get a membership to use the bike around the city instead of taking the subway quite as much. I walk almost everywhere in the city. Like if it's going to take me a half an hour or less, I'm going to walk because I just enjoy it. I think it's a good exercise, but it's fun. It's like adventure. You never know what you're going to see or walk into when you're walking.
You live in Manhattan, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I've spent quite a bit of time in Manhattan. Yeah. It's interesting.
So there's always something, but the bike ride thing was interesting because, I mean, there's nothing quite like riding a bicycle down 6th Avenue in Midtown. My gym is like 15 blocks away, and it's just long enough that it's like a 20-minute walk. So it's kind of long, but it's in Midtown, and nobody wants to walk through Midtown. It's a nightmare. And it's like 2 subway stops. So it's kind of like just close enough. Like I feel like I shouldn't be taking public transportation, but it's just far enough, whatever. And so it took me about 2 months to kind of get up the courage to do this bike thing. And for the first month, I was literally taking my life in my hands. Like I kind of felt like an idiot for doing it, and I kind of felt like a badass at the same time. But it was amazing. Like you're saying, it's a very different getaway than what you were describing. But for me, it's like you are so focused because there's a bus on this side and there's people over here, and you're in the middle and you're weaving in and out. And I mean, people in my family are like, you're crazy and stupid. You're going to get killed. You're going to get sideswiped. But it's really good. It's good for your brain. It's good for your body. And of course, I find lots of, I'll go down like the West Side Highway and I'll bike through the park. The park, Central Park, is about 9-kilometer loop, which is actually quite challenging because up on the north end, it's quite hilly. People don't know. The tourists get on their little bikes and have a hard time with it because it's pretty challenging. But in the last 10 months or so, I've gone from, I never got on a bike and wasn't very interested in it, to the city bike tracks how far you go. And I've probably biked 300 miles in the last 10 months. And that's not trying. That's not trying. Like I'm not getting on a bike every day as part of my exercise. That's me getting on a bike when I don't feel like walking, or, going through the park once or twice a week just because I feel like it for something to do. And that's the amount of, exercise that I got out of that, and the amount of sort of meditative kind of brain relaxation that I get from doing that. That wasn't even a part of my life before then, just from getting on a bike. I mean, it's pretty incredible. You can do it.
Is that one of your city workouts, is to go through Central Park at night? Because you can't stop. You just got to go full speed the whole time.
Absolutely. But it's incredible. You go into the park and the difference in the air quality. And I mean, you can go into parts of that park where you would never know you're in the middle of Manhattan. Really. Like it's actually
quiet.
Absolutely. It's quiet. Yeah. There are like manicured lawns and gardens. There's like little side paths that you're like fully in the woods. I mean, you go into the southern end for about 10 blocks and it's like a tourist trap. I mean, that's still beautiful, but it's a beautiful tourist trap. You go up the next 30, 40 blocks and there's nobody in there. I mean, it's a massive park. It's incredible.
Well, and what would that's a great transition, because we did mean to talk about that. Because for me, it's been a while since I've had to do the city thing. And I used to spend quite a bit of time in New York, actually, with the State Department. I worked the UNGA every year. I was one of the guys you guys hated, to stop traffic all the time with motorcades and all that. Yeah. But it was always a challenge when we were there to work out. Now, I used to go to New York racquetball, and where the gym where Seinfeld went. Mm-hmm. I used to go to that one. And I remember it was a ways away. I would run to it. And I don't know how many times I got just nailed. People turning corners, bad idea.
Yeah.
But what would you recommend for people in the city? Because it is such a different culture. It's difficult, especially in New York. There aren't grocery stores not very many in Manhattan. It's delis. And if you go to the wrong deli, you will fill up that man suit, that little man diaper. Those delis, man, you go to the wrong one.
Yeah.
I've gotten really sick. And thankfully, the NYPD guys used to tell me after a while, they go, no, don't go to that one. You want to
Yeah, you got the inside track.
But how do you, if you travel a lot, what would you recommend, or live in a very metropolitan area?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit biased because I really am a city person, and we had this conversation about how sort of unnatural it is for us all to be in these tiny little boxes and these high rises and these like concrete jungles, and it is unnatural. But I really love New York, and I love living in a big city, and I think it's interesting because I'm sort of a natural introvert, so I kind of love being a part of that sort of wave of humanity without actually sort of interacting with it. It's kind of weird. I just like being in it. I like seeing it and being a part of that energy, but I don't necessarily, it is very, it's very, it can be overwhelming, and there's definitely some sensory overload stuff that happens when you live in a big city. But with that said, I think that New York, you have the ability to eat well and exercise well very cheaply if you know what you're doing and if you are a little bit creative. And the exercise part of it is simple. So, I mean, first of all, I just, like I said, walk everywhere. Walk everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not? It's simple, it's fun, it's easy. Like one of my favorite things, and I did this more when I first moved there. I moved, I think, for the first time in 2009, and I didn't know anybody and I didn't know the city at all. You pick a neighborhood and you just go and you wander. And now you can Google things. You can find a cool coffee shop. You can find, there's always a museum. There's something to do. There's a restaurant. There's somewhere you want to go. You pick a neighborhood and you just wander and you walk for hours. And that's the best exercise you can do.
There's some neat neighborhoods in Manhattan and New York. Oh my God. I've seen, cool places.
And
the food is fantastic. Some of the best eating ever I've had in Manhattan.
You can eat very expensively there too, but I think more in bigger cities, you can eat well cheaply because there is so much and there's so much competition that if you aren't good, you're not going to last. So the quality of the food is very good there, and the quality of ethnic food and the quality of fast casual
the ethnic food is top notch.
Incredible.
You won't find it very many places in the country that's that good. And they got to do something with all those rats. So, you get
exactly. Yeah.
The rats are massive.
I'm equal opportunity carnivore. I'll eat it all.
Biggest rats I've ever seen have been in New York.
Yeah.
That's saying something, because I lived in DC and there were some big ass rats in DC too.
Those were politicians.
Well, yeah, that's true. I completely mistake that. I wonder why they had ties on.
Yeah, you're running away from the rats is a whole other exercise. But no, so I mean, you're walking everywhere. You've got the city bikes. You can bike wherever you want to go. And there are so many free opportunities. There's yoga in Bryant Park all summer. It's free. There's running. Yep. And other places, but Bryant Park, I went to it all last summer. There are running groups that are free. I meet my girlfriend lives up in Morningside Heights, and I meet her on 125th, probably once a weekend, and we'll go, there's a set of stairs there that's 100 steps, and we'll go up and down at 10 times. We'll sprint up and walk down and chat, and then we'll go have a coffee afterwards. That's free. We signed up for a run together. It was, I don't know when it was. I think it was like October, run up Rockefeller Center. We raised some money for multiple sclerosis, and we ran up the Rockefeller Center, which is 68 floors. And it's harder even than it sounds, because that building, the stairs are very wide. So you have to run from staircase to staircase. You can't even get in a rhythm and go up. It was really challenging, but you find things like that are fun. There are tons of groups. There are tons of adult rec sport leagues that you go and you do soccer, baseball, or you do volleyball, or you whatever. There's a zillion of them. And that also brings me to sort of the community aspect of it too, because a lot of people, it's important that they work out with them. I do a lot of working out by myself. I've kind of always been that way, but a lot of people want to do things. They want that sort of incentive and that kind of social aspect. Anybody who says, this is just my opinion, anybody who says that it's hard to meet people in New York is full of shit, or they're not trying hard enough. New York is one of the best places to meet people, because there's so many. We're all kind of all by ourselves, so we're all looking for places to congregate and things to do and people to meet. Big metropolitan cities are generally, to generalize, full of people who are sort of from somewhere else, who are educated, who are well-traveled. They have interesting things to say. I mean, I have found New York to be a welcoming, friendly place generally. So there's always somebody. You can meet people at the gym. You can meet people at classes. If you want to work out for free, there are a zillion opportunities. If you want to pay money, there are a zillion classes. There's a class pass. I don't know if they have this outside of New York or in other cities, but where you can literally pay. It's like a gym membership, but you can go to different classes and different sort of franchises to try them out. So you can do in a month, you can take this yoga class, this spin class, this rowing class, this boot camp class. You can do whatever you want. You can try them all. You can do all these different things. It's unlimited. And there are 10 plus gym franchises in the city that, and, people say, I don't want to spend $200 to go to CrossFit gym. The gym that I go to, and I go in and do like typical sort of CrossFit mixed with bodybuilding workouts. The one I go to is $30 a month. And it's in Manhattan. And there are 10 locations. And it's fabulous. It's crazy. Clean.
That's cheaper than the gym I go to in the sticks.
No kidding.
Thank you. Yeah, really cheap. It's no frills. This is the thing. Again, people in New York expect like, well, I have to have like, my hot towels and I have to have all these other classes that I can go to for free. This is no frills. This is a clean, nice locker room and a gym that has everything you need. It has a squat rack and it has dumbbells, but it's $30 a month. You go in and get your workout and you get out. So yeah, I mean, it's unlimited. You just have to be. Yeah.
You can work out anywhere. And we talked about that too. I used to carry a gear bag in my car, in my government car, because, I'd end up in downtown LA, all over the place, but there was always a park, surveillance. I could get a break. All I needed was 30 minutes. That's it. But I had a bag with me. It had an extra pair of running shoes. It had a pair of shorts, pair of socks, a pair of workout underwear just in case. And a shirt, I just carried that wherever, and I always had it with me. And I usually carried a jump rope and resistance bands in there at all times too. And I even had a basketball in my car as well in the trunk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to make, because the biggest excuse we all hear, I don't have time. Yeah. You know what? Bullshit. Once I break apart someone's day, there is so much wasted time, And another thing, if you're going to work out, for the love of God, put down your phone and get off social media. I will knock that thing right out of your hands. It drives me absolutely batshit nuts. Go to the gym. And I run my own business. I have to keep, my phone's around me, but I use it mainly to listen to podcasts and stuff to entertain myself.
Yeah.
But there's nothing worse than seeing someone on a piece of equipment and and I know what they're doing. They never look up. Don't do that. Be committed to it, because you're never going to reach any goals by staring at your phone besides getting a bad neck and having a cervical spine fusion later on in life. That's about all you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
Was it you that was telling me the story about the girl that walked into the gym? She goes in there, she's got her workout gear on. She goes in, sits down on the treadmill, takes a selfie, and then walks out. So she could post it, hey, I'm at the gym, and then rolled out. Somebody told me that.
I caught a girl in the gym. She must have taken at least an hour of video and pictures. It was nonstop. I couldn't figure out. She kept holding her phone and doing weird stuff. And I finally caught a glimpse of the screen, and it was her in the screen. I finally figured out, what is she doing? And I just went, I just started laughing. I go, you're a mess. I mean, I can't even imagine, the relationship that is, but
yeah, I mean, and the intensity isn't there. If you can play on your phone when you're working out, obviously the intensity isn't there. And going back to even what you were saying about switching it up, like rep schemes and stuff. I know I was listening to a couple sessions with some trainers and sports performance folks at Paleo FX, and they were saying that basically the research being done about what the ideal sort of rep scheme is, or is it best to do high weight and low reps or vice versa? And there really isn't, there isn't a best one. It's about intensity. It's like, if you're doing, very light weights, but you're doing a ton of them and you're working to exhaustion, it's as good perhaps as doing a couple super, super heavy reps, a few times. So it's about going in there. If you're going to spend an hour in the gym every day, put the work in, like feel like you did something, then,
Yeah, well, yeah. And that's why I say, look at it as therapy. It's therapy that makes you healthier. Go in there, take out that aggression. If you've had a bad day, just get at it. And that's what I use it. If I'm just pissed off, I just go exercise. I just get it out of me, or I might do some other things occasionally if it gets real bad. We won't talk about that, but we have on other shows. But, it's one of those things where you're there anyway. And that's why I get frustrated with people. You're already there. Yeah. And you know what the fact is? If you're half-assing it there, you're half-assing it in life. You're as my coach used to say, if you're half-assing it on the football field, you're half-assing your relationship, you're half-assing your homework. And he was right. He was totally right. If you're half-assing it in the gym, your whole life is that way. Yeah. So think about it. It's about discipline too. And I'm not talking just being some nut that all you do is focus and work out, and, you know, you got to enjoy life. Mm-hmm. But life is a heck of a lot more enjoyable if you work out right, you eat right most of the time, and you have a little fun. You make sure you have fun with everything. It's pretty basic stuff. And trust me, it took me a long time to learn. Mm-hmm. And the stress levels of what we deal today is absurd. It just is. So you have to figure out the balance. And with the workout and the diet, it just makes life that much better. And that's why I'm into life simplicity now, or life simplification. And that's why I've kind of ventured out of primarily the health world, but everything I teach starts with health. That's where the foundation is, because I tell anyone, you can't do anything to its full potential if you're not healthy and you don't take your health as priority number one.
Yeah. Even
relationships. If you put your relationship before your health, hate to say it, it's not going to work. Yeah. That health will benefit that relationship, not the relationship is going to benefit that health that you're not doing. You know, there's a pattern in all of it. Ashleigh, is there anything you got going on that you want to share? I know you're the host of, you know, the Paleo Magazine podcast, and you know, I've been on there a couple times, and I must say you're doing a great job, and Tony did a great job too.
Yes, he did. Yeah. I mean, just the podcast is really my priority right now. We've got a couple of really cool guests coming up, and I'm really trying to expand it. I want to bring on guests, you know, like yourself, but folks who aren't maybe strictly in the paleo world, because I want to bring in some different voices, some different perspectives, and also get some different listeners, right? Because when you get the who's who of paleo, which are great, and they're smart people that I want to talk to, but we're kind of preaching to the choir with that a little bit. So it's good to bring in some people that are just, you know, maybe on the periphery or have something kind of different to say. So we've got, just the other day, I interviewed Laird Hamilton, a famous surfer, his wife, Gabrielle Reese, who's a former volleyball player, and she's an author and a model and basically a superstar. And those two they talked a lot about relationships and family and community, and also their own lifestyle, because they're like these uber healthy, super fit people. So that was really cool. So that's coming up. And I'm just trying to find some cool guests and really,
well, they're not paleo. If I remember right, I believe they're vegetarians, or they used to be.
No, right? Not vegetarians. I don't know how Kane would feel about me getting some vegetarians on the podcast, but no, they are.
Or semi.
They're essentially, and I think this primal thing, you mentioned primal earlier, and I think that's something that's also something that I'm seeing increasingly in the paleo community as it evolves. The sort of good offshoot of its evolution is paleo plus common sense and what works for you. So even with Rob Wolf's new book, his like 7-day carb test and the Wired to Eat thing, it's about testing yourself personally and being like, okay, maybe sweet potato, which is like the paleo staple, actually isn't that great for me, but I can eat a little bit of rice, and that's okay because I can personally handle it, but not just going on a blanket keto's the thing, so I'm going to be keto. Paleo's the thing, so I'm going to be paleo. And that's what these guys were saying too. They like to eat real food. They eat meat and vegetables. And sometimes they eat some other stuff if it works for them too, but they eat healthy, real food. And I think that's really what a lot of the thrust is going towards now, is like, just you don't have to be dogmatic, and you don't have to be such a stickler to rules. You just have to eat healthy, real food that makes you feel good. And that's it. So that's it.
And not being miserable. And that was the thing, you know, that people did. They took it too far. Mm-hmm. And we're all guilty of that, you know, and I think now that and paleo it's still fairly new. So it's going through its evolution, you know, and it's going through the process just like anything. And you know, it's sad that we have to label anything, because when you think of, you know, like paleo, primal, I call it just eating. You know, just eating what we're intended to eat. I'm sad we have to put labels on it.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, we all know that it works. Now, will it work for everyone? There's about 5% that paleo diet does not necessarily work for, but some version of it will probably work. I mean, how can you argue against what we're intended to eat? It's kind of hard to argue against that.
Yeah.
You know, exactly. Would it be the same in every culture? No. there's different variations of it. You know, the Mediterranean diet, you know, there's more oils, there's more nuts, and, you know, different choices of vegetables, different carbs, or different protein sources. It just depends, you know, and that's why I tell people, it's, no one knows.
Yeah.
And you know, I not to say that, gosh, what's the best way to put it? But it's, you have to find what works for you. And people think, I had someone on Twitter, you know, I followed him. I didn't realize they were a hardcore vegan. I can't remember why I followed them.
That was your mistake right there, yeah.
Well,
hardcore vegan.
Well, I think they were, and they came back and they go, "Oh, really? I'm a such and such vegan, whatever." I go, "I don't care. You know, it doesn't matter to me. If it was working for you and you like it." There are some people who killing of an animal, they just can't take it.
Yeah,
I get that. There's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with that. If you're healthy, you feel good, and it's your moral compass you're following, hey, I have zero problem with that. But I'm also a realist, and I know it works. And I know it's the easiest path to follow. Being a vegan is very difficult. It is not easy. It is a lot of work, and you better have your shit together, or it's going to go wrong on you really quick.
And you're at a disadvantage because, as you said, you are eating against what your physiology is telling you to do. So you have to work extra hard to make sure that you're actually meeting your nutritional goals. It's a challenge for sure.
It's a big challenge. And is it to say you can't do it? No. And being a vegan, or a vegetarian has a weird stigma to it too. You're still eating animal products. You're just not eating animal flesh.
Yeah.
Some cultures, they would not eat a lot of animal flesh. They may only eat, you know, drink some of the milk, get dairy or eggs. It just depends. That's very hard to say because it's never been, there was one thing I can say with absolute certainty. There's never been a vegan culture ever found in the history of the world. A pure, strict vegan culture, they have never found it.
Well, it's only been in the last, few hundred years that we've had the ability to choose not to eat meat.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, up until, you know, the agriculture, it was like, well, you eat what you can eat and you eat what's in front of you and, you know, you're hungry.
Well, and agriculture is what turned us into city dwellers. Right. There were no real cities until we began and figured out agriculture because we were nomadic. We were hunter-gatherers. We couldn't stay in one place because we would literally hunt the area out. We would eat the food sources we could. All we were left with, we can't survive. It's impossible to survive. Explain to people, you can't eat nothing but vegetation and bugs and survive. You can't. You can for a little bit, but long term, it's hard to do because you cannot take in enough calories off those foods in order to sustain yourself, especially brain. The brain's a friggin' monster to consuming energy. That big bowling ball filled with dog turds for some people takes a lot of energy. Even if all 3 holes, I only have 1 or 2 holes filled with dog poop, but some people got them all. It still takes, you know, it takes a lot of energy whether you use that thing or not.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, and that's where it gets tricky. But again, I say, if you can figure it out and that's the way you want to go, hey, knock yourself out. So be it. I'm not going to argue with you and try and talk you out of it. But if you come to me and you go, hey, I was a vegan or vegetarian, I'm trying to, you know, I haven't been feeling so well. Hey, I'll help you.
Yeah.
You know, but if you come to me and go, hey, I'm a vegan, I'm not go, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Here's my book, read it. You're a dummy. No.
There's an interesting overlap with paleo and vegetarian and veganism too. And I think maybe it's just a general interest in health and nutrition and what to put in your body because, and I know I actually have like a surprising amount of vegetarian and vegan people I feel like recently following me on Instagram, which I am always kind of worried because if you go on my Instagram, it's literally like pictures of me like with a like bison heart. Like I just, I'm just like, so I'm like, are these people going to hate me? But I mean, I don't know, I think it's just, we're all just learning. No judgment. You got to do what works for you.
As long as it's not Donald Trump's head. Okay. Don't do that.
No. We all learned our lesson last week. Yeah.
Oh, celebrities. You love them. And that's another thing. Don't get your health advice from celebrities, for the love of God. As you can see, they're very stupid, most of them.
Don't get any life advice from anybody on the internet.
Yeah, life advice or health advice. Just steer clear.
Steer clear. Listen to us and no one else on the internet.
That's right. Just us. Yeah. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely have you come on again. We can get into some other interesting
Yeah, that would be great. No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. Next we have to chat. I know when we had our podcast and then we ended up talking for another half hour after we turned it off. But I'd love to chat more about the mindfulness part, because we started getting into that before, and probably on a Sunday night at about, what is it, 11 o'clock now? I don't know if we can talk intelligently about it.
We start getting mindful less.
Yeah. But I think that's another interesting part of the health dynamic, I think, too, that's really important. And there's a lot of aspects about that we could get into. So maybe next time.
All right. Thanks, Ashleigh.
That's a great topic.
Yeah. I
appreciate you coming on. This was an awesome podcast. And I guess if you guys don't have anything else, we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.